Hello, good morning, and thank you as for joining in. Um, Thank you, Constance, for joining in. Greetings to all of you, and uh, this is gonna be a wonderful day. This is gonna be a great discussion. So if you just tune in, make sure you share and. The first thing you getting on is to share the information, share the link and share. So that is the most important thing. So we get the information to the right person, to the right source. And remember that I'm broadcast live on my Facebook and on my YouTube. So either way, you should be able to get me live. If you are in France, if you are in Europe, Germany, Switzerland, wherever you are. If you are in Asia, you are in Russia, you are in. So make sure you put a little bit of a note to let me know because I reveal my informations after the broadcast. So let me know that you were on this live broadcast. If you are in ground zero, just briefly let me know that you were watching from ground zero. If you are in La Republique, let me know that you were watching from La Republique. And wherever you are in South Africa, Kenya, um I mean, Baghdad, wherever you are. So just briefly, let me understand that you were watching. If you are here in the entire continental state of the United States, wherever you're here in the United States, briefly indicate that you are watching. And that gave me, revealed me that you were watching. And thank you, Mr. Uh, Conway, for joining in. If my name, if I might have pronounced your name wrong. So remember that I'm broadcast on my Facebook and on my YouTube. So either way, you should be able to get me live. I want to take a moment to thank you for tuning in. Here again, my name is Fontom Daniel, speaking here from the great state of Texas here in the United States. It is a wonderful, it's a pleasure having you. Thank you, Mr. Emmanuel, for joining in. And remember that you can always get me on my Facebook and on my YouTube as well. All right. Thank you, Pascal. Thank you, Pascal, for joining in. Thank you, Frank, for joining in. It's a wonderful. It's a pleasure having you guys to tune in. It is. I'm so incredible happy why you all. It is a reason why you are there. So I want to first of all, thanks the people in Ground Zero and the people in La Republic. It is quite, it's very, very urgent. It is important. You know, there is one thing that many Africa has not embraced the freedom of liberty. I am not speaking just about Ambazonian. I am not speaking about La Republic, but I am speaking African globally. African globally, they haven't embraced the word liberty. Africa still believe there's still Africa in general, African continent. That's the continent that is still hasn't embraced the wind of economic prosperity, economic development, economic for the entire African as a whole. They still believe that they're still in those dark ages. And that is why the current leadership, they believe in Europeans for an emergency decision on how they should progress. Africa hasn't embraced the wind blow of change. And even though without a vast education system throughout the world, Africa hasn't a valid. That is why this is not personally for the Christian community. I don't mean to challenge the Christian community because I'm going to also talk about the Christian. But however, we have we have more evangelical church open, more than research higher institute of learning established in the entire global hemisphere of Africa in general. When we look at about China, why is China so expanded? Why is China? Why should Africa expect from China when they can't enumerate and implement the same global policy? The fact is clear. Establish education system, establish high institute of learning, and provide funding. That is the principle that Africa must enumerate, especially the leadership. But unfortunately, Africa hasn't embraced this cultural revamp economy system, establish higher institute of learning, establish higher education system, establish and provide funding. And establish these will create an avenue of higher learning and institute development. But unfortunately, we have more religious a university, more than the higher institute of research. Then why do we have to enumerate? Why can't we provide those days? But Africa is still dragging behind. And that is why there should be a change and dynamic focus of Africa. Because after learning, after being in all the various institutions, they haven't enumerated. But let's talk about the United States. The United States, especially United States, I just want to be thankful for the policy that United States has and revamp and look forward on Africa development. I think United States has a key role to play. United States shouldn't just for putting what like the president Donald Trump described the border war. But the important is to look at why is people migrating to the United States. How can the United States partnership with those nations and institute a political reform? By instituting a political reform, we create an avenue that the people will be busy for their own economic development. Because if the United States doesn't acknowledge that they have a key role to play, either in Central South America, Africa, or elsewhere, is to provide an avenue. United States policy must be revised and ensure that crystal clear that they will stand for economic and political development. And once those political and economic development are instituted as a priority of the United States has a military might and capability to do whatever it takes to ensure that dictatorship doesn't prevail. You can imagine that one individual is in power for 36 years. It is unbelievable. And that is why the United States must stand and play a key role. And that should be a prerogative. The matter is not just to build a wall, because once an effective government is established and the economic potential of the people are put in place, obviously it will decrease net migration. It will obviously decrease net migrations. Migration is people searching for opportunity. And when people are searching for opportunity because they have a back wagon of military government that is kind of repressive against the regime. But if the United States stood against those repressive regime and established a meaningful government that is responsible to the people demand and be able and willing to change the culture of political reform, then that will be the means in which the people will stay where they are. But if the United States think that building a wall doesn't satisfy the basic reason why people migrate, look at the South America crisis that is erupted. It's because there is no political change of leadership. One individual believes that he can stay in power so long as he believes he is. But however, the United States must prosper because there is a change of leadership. There is a cap on who should rule the United States, and that has played a key role for this economic development. The cap that plays on change of leadership, that someone must stay in the White House. 8 years is the maximum. 8 years for someone to be in the White House is the maximum that has been a cap on the liberty of people in the United States to choose who has to govern. And so this creates a lasting impression and the philosophy of economic development of the United States. And each individual that is in this United States, after the maximum of 8 years or 4 years, but the maximum is 8 years. And that each another person will emerge and has his own vision and philosophy. And there is a each individual evaluation of performance. And that performance gives the strong economic boom of this great nation. And the United States, in order to embrace this philosophy, must apply to the rest of the world community. That this is the pathway to a change. For us to be in this platform, the United States is capable. Yeah, I'm just saying thank you for that information. I am saying it. I'm finding why there's a disruption. Uh, Can you go onto my YouTube and see if you having a disruption? Is Yes, I saw it. I am watching it. I am seeing the disruption. And can you go onto my YouTube and type Transparency Media International and see if you have it clear? Thank you, Mulu, for joining in. Uh, Thank you, Amber, for joining in. Um, I hope the thank you, Priceless, for joining in. Uh, um, Anyway, there was a disruption in the live broadcast. That is why on my Facebook, I hope the problem is rectified. I want to thank all of you that are tuning in, and thank you, Melly, for Violet from YouTube, and thank you, Priceless, thank you, Ahmed, thank you, Molu, for joining in. Here again, make sure you share. That's the one important thing that you do. And thank you, Lovett, for joining in. Uh, so, before I proceed, I want to thank you for tuning in back again. I was live. There was some disruptions, and that people were not seeing. It was just like a crowd. So I just changed the line, and I think the link should be okay by now. And there was some bridges or disruption. But however, we are back to live. I am broadcast on my Facebook and on my YouTube. And to many of you that are just joining in here again, my name is Fonton Daniel. If you are in Ground Zero, if you are in La Republique, or you are elsewhere in Africa as a whole, I was talking about economic potential for African as a whole to change the cultural dynamic for the interests of all Africans. That there is a broad-based development that is spreading across the world, but Africa is still behind because there's a group of individuals within the African continent as a whole that ignore the fundamental principles of a global African development, but they focus more on their own egoistic, self-centered interest rather than the Africa as a whole. And with a couple of facts that the French government behind the Africa poor response or poor development, and it is important that African culture heritage must learn to live that without the French influence. You have 14 African countries or that are associated with France, and they haven't yet. But I will be diving onto this more. And uh, I want to take a moment to thank our brothers and sisters in Ground Zero that are fighting fiercely, fighting fiercely to protect and protect our motherland. That is where we were born. You know, there are many affluent people of Southern Cameroon or Ambazonian that are in the diaspora that they haven't embraced this freedom and liberty, but are widely scattered in these wonderful nations, United States, Germany, Switzerland. I mean, the Southern Cameroon that if they all convert, they believe that there is a change that is going to occur before they can emerge and become the victorious. Some don't even want to portray themselves. They want to be shown as the special good guys. And they haven't embraced that liberty that even here in the United States become what it is today because certain individuals stood for freedom and fought hardly, fought fiercely for liberty to prevail in this wonderful nations, United States and Great Britain. You are members. Many of the English migrated to United States because of the embattled fiasco of the English rule against certain people of their religious origin or belief system. And so we are learning history. And that is why when you study here in the United States, even in Europe, whatever, it is a prerequisite to understand the historical background for why this nation became what it is today. And people think that they just impose them those historical knowledge, the essence of you understand where United States began and why it is today. And after establish that base, and then you should pick from there and think about your own sovereign nations that you believe you came from, and that you have to institute those reforms, and that will help, that will promote economic prosperity. If the world can be prospered, then human ingenuity. But yet, one thing is lacking within the African community is that they haven't totally embraced this. Even though they've studied, even though they've been to the highest university, and you place them in the same organigram, and they will not even institute those reforms they believe is for the interest of a sovereign nation. You have many, I interact with many of the Southern Cameroon here in the United States. Some are in elsewhere, they interact with me. But one thing I haven't seen them embrace is the liberty that must prevail. Liberty must prevail. Liberty is a prerequisite that must prevail. And Africa must embrace this. Give me a minute. Thank you, Nat, for joining in. All right. Uh, so the one emergency that I am reporting here that I don't want to left it out is there is a plan by La Republic military and with complicity of Atanganji. You all know the controversial ex-convict. You all know the controversial ex-convict of Southern Cameroon, Atanganji. There is indications that there is a plan on the way to assassinate Professor Maurice Kamto. So this is very urgent. This is very important. I am bringing this towards the international community to pay close attention of the terrorist government of La Republique. This plan they are using whatever means they can to use to assassinate Professor Maurice Kamto because they see him as a direct threat to La Republique existence. And so now there is a plan, and this plan is well orchestrated by the military wing of La Republique, the BIR, the police department, the head of the police department in La Republique, and many of these officials. Um, I will be coming more on details about this report in my subsequent news program.